do not know. There we go.
All right, so I'm going to broadcast and
Okay.
do my introduction, and then start driving again because I'll mute you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll mute me. I mean.
Oh. Yes, hi everybody. Oh, are you on board, Claire?
I am here, so
There
I was
you
just
are.
giving everyone a chance. I am here. I was just giving everyone a chance to log in. But so good afternoon, everyone. It is 4 o'clock. It is Thursday. No, it's not. It's Wednesday, the 29th. And we are at the 4 p.m. PPP update webinars that we have scheduled, our bi-weekly calls. You can't actually see me today because I underestimated beach traffic, and I'm in between two locations. I thought I would be back at the computer in time, but rookie move on my part and on the shore in the summer, so I apologize for that. So today we are going to be doing the same format as usual. We're going to ask you guys to submit your questions through the Q&A function, and we will get to answering all your questions. Chris is going to be talking about the latest in what's going on with the PPP loans. And again, just don't use your raise hands or your chat function. If you could just try and keep it in the Q&A, that makes it easier for us to monitor it. And I think that is all. I will talk a little bit about SCORE towards the end of the call and just give you my usual, look for a mentor on our website, and you can follow this up on YouTube, etc. after the end of the call. So without much more ado, I'm going to hand over to Chris.
All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another one of these webinars. Today, we're going to have some updates, and it's especially exciting about a second bite at the apple on the PPP. And then I want to run through some reminders and what's going on and how we look at the PPP world. And also remind everybody, and for everybody who needs it, etc., that EIDL is still open, and it's still a good loan, especially if you need small amounts, 25,000 and under, where there is no collateralization, and under 200,000, there are no personal guarantees, 3.75% loan. So with that said, let's jump in and talk a little bit more about PPP. So we'll start with the current program, what's going on there and what's going on with forgiveness specifically. But first we start with applications for people who have not done their first PPP application. And that shouldn't really be many in the current climate, where it's 24 weeks and basically everything is going to be forgiven. So applications for loans, for new loans, first loans, are the deadline for that is to get a loan number by 8/8/20, which means that a day or two earlier, probably going to have to submit to a lender. Although before the last deadline, I'm aware of a couple of loans that got handled the same day. So the lenders are getting much better about it, and you've probably been inundated about with marketing calls from people saying that your 1099s are eligible, etc., which they are. But the point is that lenders are getting better at the process and much quicker. In terms of forgiveness, forgiveness platform has been rolled out to the lenders by the SBA. That happened yesterday. And I have had occasion to check with 3 different lenders, and none of these lenders have actually been able to get the platform up and running yet. It seems like an easy thing, but it's not really. They have to get their IT and portal in place to do that. And SBA have said that they will start accepting lenders' decisions on forgiveness on 8/10. Now that's a lender's decision, and it's 7/29. Some lenders are probably going to be done in time or before this. I suspect that a lot of lenders are not going to be done in time. They're going to have to do the portal. They're going to have to do the IT. They're going to have to get their things streamlined and figure out how to do this. And the forever changing SBA requirements of the lenders. And remember, the process here is really that us as a borrower, we will actually fill out an application for forgiveness, do all the calculations that we have to do, upload it, and then the lender will then say whether they accept that and approve that forgiveness or not. And if they do, then they will send it on to SBA. And how much of a rubber stamp SBA is going to be is probably dependent on the lender and the amount of the loan. Small loans, I'm guessing it's going to be pretty much a rubber stamp. And the last I saw from SBA was also that they are saying that they are not going to hold the lenders as strict for responsibility for borrower certifications, which is good. That will allow the lenders to process through the applications quicker. And again, I'm just reminding everybody, for sole proprietors, the application for forgiveness, the easy application, is going to be very easy, basically for the amount that the sole proprietor got. They can just put that in as the cash payroll cost for themselves and roll that through, and that should be forgiven. Key aspect that I'm going to probably remind you again at the end here that it's important. You have to apply. Don't forget that. It's not automatically forgiven, but it's close to automatically once you do the application as a sole proprietor, because you don't have to do the payroll reports and all those kind of things. Also, as I said in the beginning here, PPP still available. Money is still there. So if you or people you know haven't done the applications for PPP loan yet, I think you should. Friends, tell a friend to PPP. It's a good thing. It is going to be forgivable. And as you know by now, if you follow this a few times, it's based on 2.5 times the average payroll cost for 2019, 2.5 times the monthly average payroll cost for 2019. No personal guarantees, no collateral recourse to you, only if there is abuse, fraud, those kind of things. So the newest here was the Senate bill that passed 2 days ago. Time flies, I'm not quite sure, but 2 days ago or yesterday. Anyway, what the big thing for small businesses was, especially the ones of us who have been really hard hit was that the hard hit borrowers can get a second bite at the apple. If you were down in receipts, however they're going to end up defining receipts. But if we start off thinking revenues in this as a concept here, if we are down either the first quarter this year compared to the same quarter last year, or the second quarter this year compared to the second quarter last year by 50% or more, then we are, according to the Senate bill, going to be eligible for a second bite at that apple. For small companies, it doesn't have an impact on, the new restrictions don't have an impact on us as a smaller company. If we have 300 or less employees, it doesn't have an impact on us. And it makes some other eligible requirement less stringent, actually. Now in this, if I am reading it right, is that people in bankruptcy can actually, in this round, apply. And there are quite a few people in different businesses, restaurant businesses, for example, preschools, kindergartens, and a host of other businesses that really haven't been able to open up at this point and are down substantially. This is a second chance to give you a second chance to survive. The basis, the premises is going to be much the same, with that caveat that you have to be down 50% or more. And a lot of people are in that position. This is a great thing. Hasn't passed as a law yet, so we should be aware and awake and look for it and jump on it as soon as we can. Probably going to be a line when it happens, so you want to be early. Also, I would recommend pick up the phone, call your congressperson, because we want this to be included in the, right, when they reconcile the bills on the Hill. We want this second bite to be included. So let's do a little campaign with our Congress people and remind them that this is vital for our economy here. Current program and forgiveness. As we said, forgiveness platform rolled out to lenders 7/28. And the banks, the lenders, will have a portal for us to input information and upload the information. And a few weeks ago, we went through how to calculate it. And I think 2 weeks ago, I was asked, could we send out the worksheet again? And I've been lax. I've been stuck with a couple of other things and didn't do it. We did it today. In addition, I think that in the invitation for today's webinar, I think that the worksheet and the application form, so you can see those again, actually went out. You could also go to SCORE's YouTube channel and see videos on how you do those calculations. And also, I have, if you Google my name, Chris Carlsson, PPP videos, you get to a YouTube channel there where I walk through doing those calculations, and in an Excel worksheet that is automating it, and where you can project out how far in advance, out in the future, that you're going to be to the 100% forgiveness place where we want to be. So, forgiveness, that is where we get to equal or more in eligible expenses to the loan we got for a PPP loan when we get there in 24 weeks or less from the funding. That is what forgiveness means. So what are eligible expenses? That means that we spent on expenses that are payroll costs, and that has to be at least 60% of the calculated forgiven amount. Payroll costs are gross payroll, state and local payroll taxes, health insurance, and retirement contributions to non-owner employees. So don't fool yourself in adding owner retirement contribution in there, because that was taken away at one point. We could for a long time, then they took it away. So you want to add in other expenses to get it full. Then for the 40% of the forgivable amount that are other eligible expenses, and that is rent, mortgage, interest, and utilities. And as we said, these expenses, you want them to add up within 24 weeks from funding to equal or more than what you got in the PPP loan. That's what the forgiveness means. So we want you to be forgiven everything that you got. That's the aim here. And in the worksheet that we made up, worksheet that we constructed, that shows you that there are three ways. There are three different aspects of the forgiveness calculation, and you have to use the lesser of them. The first aspect is the payroll cost, business mortgage interest payments, business rent and lease payments, business utility payments. And the second one is the PPP loan itself. And the third one is the payroll cost divided by 60%. That is the same number as that you have the requirement that payroll cost has to be at least 60% of the total. And then out of those three, you pick the one that is the least of them, and that's your forgiven amount. And in the worksheet that I have sent to you, it will then calculate how far along the line you are of forgiveness of the total loan amount. And that is what you want to keep an eye on, because you do want to get it all forgiven and get it off the book. Then the next aspect of that, now we have calculated how much the forgiveness is. So now we want to do the forgiveness on the easy form, because it's so much better, so much easier, so much less complicated than the full form is. So how do we qualify for the easy form? It is that we are able to check one of three boxes. Box one, as we said, is that we are a sole proprietor. And if we're not a sole proprietor, meaning that we're not sole proprietor, or we're not a LLC or an S Corp without any employees, where the K1 is the only compensation for the corporation. So now if we have employees, then we have to go to either box 2 or box 3. So in box 2, a requirement for that is that we didn't reduce compensation for any employee by more than 25%. That's compensation is compensation per hour type thing, or if it's salary, compensation per month or week, however you do your thing. That's the compensation. It's not the gross compensation. It's compensation per. And that's, you do a comparison for the covered period to the first quarter of 2020. So if you did not, in the covered period, reduce anybody's actual compensation per hour, per month, etc., by more than 25%, you can check this box. In addition to that, you actually also do have to have no reduction in number of employees and no reduction in average hours per week. However, and then you say, well, we have reductions in number of employees. Yes, the climate has been terrible. So Here are a couple of ways out for that, and that is that we can use the last week of the covered period up to 12/31 and compare to the week of 1/1/20 and have that equal amount. So we need 1 week when we bump up the employee count to correspond to 1/1/20. And that is that we can adjust for if we're unable to rehire and those kind of things. And that's based on certifications, and you're supposed to have the backup. Now, the third one, which is probably the more likely one that we will go for first because it's the simpler one to do, and that is if we have a reduction in business level, and here my interpretation of business level is revenues. If we have a reduction of the business level in our covered period compared to the same time last year, then we're eligible in box 3 if we were affected by some authorities' restrictions on what we can do. And I would say that that's a fairly broad definition of restrictions. If there were imposed mask mandate or social distancing or other restrictions that we have through CDC, Health and Human Services, or state restrictions, then we are eligible for that. We are eligible to use the easy form. I think almost everybody should be able to qualify for this. And as we said, there is a PPP forgiveness worksheet that I sent you that feeds in to mirror the forgiveness form. You should have by now got them with your CPA, a bookkeeper, to look at getting the payroll reports that you need and the revenue reports that you need for this. You need to get your ducks in a row, which I actually found a photograph for. So what do we need for payroll reports? We need, obviously, the 1/1 to 3/31/20, because that's the comparison period. We need a covered period, which is the 8 to 24 weeks, where we can get to pick anything in between there. However, we have to have spent all the money. In eligible expense and non-eligible expenses. And you want to make sure that you get your 100% forgiveness. We want the last week of the covered period. We want the week of 1/1, week of 2/15/20, and the week of 12/31/20. Because all of those are used for either comparison or for a safe harbor period. And again, how to do this and how to look at that, there are videos you can Google my name and PPP videos. You get there are a couple of them that walks through how to look at it and how to do it. And you also need revenues to do box 3. And to covered period versus same time last year. Obviously, if you got the money on April 14 or May 14 or something like that, none of us do accounting in those kind of time periods. So then you would go to the first one within those boundaries to do your comparison. I haven't seen any direct directions on how to do that, but this is a practical issue, what makes sense to do within the time period. Again, to get the forgiveness, and don't forget it, because they will come after the money if you don't. And they will go right to the bank account where to dump the money. They're not going to ask you, they're not going to do anything. It's up to you. You have up to 10 months after your cover period ends. That's the 8 to 24 weeks. So in reality, you have really 10 months after the 24 weeks have expired. That's really where you can look at it. So after that, you're kind of dead. And don't necessarily rush when it opens up. Make sure that you have your ducks in a row. Look out, make sure that the numbers work before you apply. Go through the worksheet, do what you have to do. It's worth it. And don't also wait too long, because there are close to 5 million companies who are going to go through this process and go overwhelm the lenders. And because this is going to be as complicated or easy, excuse me, as it was to do the loan. Also wanted to end with a reminder, before we do question and answers, if there are any, of state programs. New Jersey has a couple of programs still. There are some phases 1 and some phase 2 that are dead, the money has run out. But in the new bill, if I'm reading it right, the states are going to get new money from the federal government to also augment their programs. So keep an eye. If you're in New Jersey, look at the njeda.com. In the middle of that page, and this is what you see here, you click here and it walks through different programs, and among other things, you get to this page, emergency assistant eligibility wizard, and there you can see what's available. And seems like it's pretty user-friendly. So I would go there and see what programs are there. In your own state, I would just Google state COVID-19 relief programs. And I'm sure that you're going to get right there to the state websites. And I know that many of you have gone after this, and keep doing it. We need you. We need you and us and everybody to survive in this economy. All right, so Claire is driving, so I'm going to do the Q&A myself here today.
I am here, and I'm
Hey,
listening.
You are. Okay, then you can read it. I get a little
no,
break.
I'm still.
No, you can't. You're driving.
I'm still driving.
Yeah, all right. I'll read it. Hold on.
But yeah, you read it. But I just want. I am here, and as soon as I stop driving, I'll tell you.
Okay. Does workman's compensation insurance premiums qualify payroll costs? No, they do not. It is gross payroll, health insurance, and retirement contributions. The workers' comp does not, for some reason, qualify in this. It will never come up, and I have no idea, but it doesn't. How does PPP and EIDL grant affect NJEDA grant, or Small Business Lease Emergency Grant? Can you apply for these if you have received PPP and EIDL? Yes, you can. I know several people who have done it. I have not myself gone after any of these, but I know people who have. My understanding is that what you got in EIDL and in the PPP is not affected for applying for the state money. And what are the thoughts on the EIDL loans? Should we take these also if offered? And there are interesting aspects of that, of course. And there are business aspects and there are direct loan aspects of that. To start with the business aspect, like should be asked for any loan that the business takes is, first, do you need the money? Do you think you might need the money? If the answer is that, yes, I need the money to be sure or have the flexibility and sleep at night, I need some additional money to pull my business through these difficult times, then I would say, yes, take the money. Then it also depends on how much money. If it's if it's 25,000 or less, and I would say, yes, take the money, because then if you don't need it, you can just give it back. There is no collateralization, there's going to be no UCC filing, and it's a cheap loan. You don't have to pay anything for the first year. So you can sit there and see and assess what it is that you need to do. And then if you don't want to have it on your books, you give it back. Then if you are in a position where it's higher loan, if you got 150,000, 200,000 or something like that, if that is what's offered you, if it's under 200, then you don't have to do a personal guarantee. So that's one less hurdle. You don't have to think about that. However, you do have UCC issues that will be lien filed on your company among the private property assets of the company. And you will have a loan on the books. And that can be a positive effect on you. It could be a negative effect of you. The positive effect could be that you have a long-term loan and you get short-term cash, and that improves your quick ratio, the current assets to the current liabilities. So that's a good thing. The negative is that you have other loans on the books, and if it's over 25,000, that will be UCC that is first on your assets. And if you are thinking about in the future getting other loans, that could put you in a position where a bank doesn't like it. So there are things to consider here. And also, there is no prepayment penalties on these, whatever the amount is. So if you got 250,000, you think I might need it, we don't know what happens, and that's a personal guarantee, it's UCC, then if you're not going to borrow other money in the foreseeable future, and you're a little bit saying, I might need the money, I think I would take it. And then if I go look out into the future into a year, and you didn't need it, or you only used some of it, and at that point you want to get rid of liability on the balance sheet, you pay it back. I have heard SBA hasn't given banks the official forgiveness process yet. Have you heard it? They gave the banks the process yesterday and the platform to do it, and the sandbox portal to hook their own portals up to do this work. So yes, they have, but it happened yesterday, and the banks are now going through to figure out what it means, how they're going to do it, and how they're going to set up their own portals to process this and what they're supposed to do. And the SBA will be open to receive the bank's decisions for forgiveness on 8/10. So yes. All right, we are at 4:32, and there are no more questions at this point. So if there's nothing more.
You know what? I have one question, Chris. Have you heard anything about the New Jersey grant, the landlord grant that's going out on August the 10th? That maybe, I think it's August the 10th it goes live. That maybe, have you heard about that one?
I have heard about it. I haven't dug into it, and I'm hearing that it's partially funded by federal money, and it's coming.
Yeah, I think so. What I might say is just like to the people listening, I encourage people listening. It's a grant to help with rent expense, and I know a little bit about it, not a huge amount. But if you're leasing commercial space, and I'm not sure what the definition of commercial doesn't mean if you're leasing a storefront. I mean, you could be leasing an office as well. In the state of New Jersey for a grant towards rent relief. So I would encourage anybody who might, think they might qualify, or just to research it a little bit further.
Yeah, when I looked this morning on New Jersey's site, I think there was a reference to it at that point. I didn't have time to click through and look, but I believe there was a reference to it, and it is for lease expenses on commercial leases, which a lot of us do have. So I certainly encourage you to look into that to get your rent payments covered.
Sorry, I'm not sure what happened. I lost my audio, but.
So another question, when does a business have to start paying back the EIDL loans? It is after a year. There is a 12-month moratorium on the loan payments. And the interest accrued during that year is then rolled back into the loan and spread out as if it was additional loan. Let's see here. How do we have access to this webinar afterwards? SCORE has a YouTube channel where you can access it. And if you go in and you go to YouTube and you do SCORE Monmouth, you will find the webinars. I will also, it probably take me a couple of days to put it up on mine, which is just Google Chris Carlsson PPP videos and you get to them. And one of our attendees is talking about the grant and say that the grant applies to 64 designated areas. That's right, I read that too, that's right. Designated areas for the commercial lease grant. And the website is njra.us. njra.us. Thanks, Diana. What is the definition of covered period? Can I file for forgiveness anytime during the 24 weeks? To start with the second portion of that question, yes, you can file anytime between 8 weeks and 24 weeks in the covered period. The covered period starts the day you were funded. That's where it starts from. You could push the payroll portion of that up to the next beginning of the payroll period. But the actual covered period starts the day of funding, and then you count the weeks, and you can file for forgiveness anytime between 8 and 24, obviously after the portal with your lender is open. Just make sure when you go there that you submit everything they're asking for. Do I have to choose 8 or 24, or is it chosen for me? No, it's not chosen for you. You get to pick however many weeks you have. So if you use my worksheet, you can put in your costs that you have in bulk where you are right now, all by week, and you put in the number of weeks where you are, and it will calculate for you how far you are and your forecast where you will be after 24 weeks. So make sure that when you do that, you look at it, you have 100% forgiveness. So will our bank send us the forgiveness form, or will we find it? The banks will not send you the forgiveness forms. I don't think so. I wouldn't count on it. If I was the bank, I would, because I want to get these loans off my book as a lender. Because as long as they sit there, it's a liability for you, and you're going to have to do the expense of servicing the loan, which they don't want to do. They want this forgiven. It doesn't affect their costs. So they might, but don't count on it. So do what I started doing this morning. I got in, we have 2 different banks. I got in and I looked, and what they have at this point is saying that it's coming, and they give you requirements that they're going to have or what they know of this time, and saying that we'll be up and running soon for it. All right. I think we are out of questions. We'll give it a minute. Let's see if something more happens. So look to our banks for the form. Yes, go in to the bank's website. They will put up when they get the form, because again, they want this stuff done. They want these loans off the books. Yes, check their website. That is what we should do. They can start submitting to SBA on August 10 is when they can do their decision. The timelines they have is that they have 90 days to assess your application for forgiveness. They're not going to do that. Only way that's going to happen is that if they get a huge queue, a huge line of applicants that they can't handle, they have 90 days, and then the SBA, I believe they have 60 days to respond. I don't think it's going to take anywhere that amount of time. I think, especially for small loans, it's going to get very quick. And I think also if you are in the beginning of the line, then I would not believe that it's going to be fairly quick. Okay. Did you say earlier that there's another PPP coming available? Yes, that is what it looks like. The Senate passed a bill, and it's going to go up in reconciliation negotiations with the House. And in that bill is a second bite at the apple for people who already have a PPP loan, and you will be eligible if you have less than 300 employees, and also if your revenues decreased by 50% or more in either the first quarter this year or the second quarter this year. So yes. Will you advise if the new bill is approved to forgive him? Yes, I would. I will I will advise with anything that comes across my computer, what I see from my sources. So yes, but I would still look at my banks and all those kind of things. I will do my best to keep you updated. All right, it's 4:42. I think that we can sign off and appreciate everybody's attendance, and you all have a good night. Thank you.
Where'd it go?